ready to start work on our pre-bonsai. First thing we do is take an analytical look at the tree to see where it's grown and what we have to work with, what we might need to do to continue the development of the tree. Two things stand out as we look at the tree. Number one is there's a lot of very aggressive growth in the abaces here, so we're going to have to address that and cut this back. The other thing is that when we go from nursery stock into bonsai, we do a lot of very aggressive pruning in the initial styling to set that initial basic style for the tree. We remove a lot of foliage, therefore we leave a lot that we may not need in the future, which is what we see here. Some of these pads that were left for the health of the tree can now be taken off, and we will continue the development of the basic style of the tree. So our first step is to do some serious pruning. We have removed some of the aggressive apical growth and a couple of the sacrifice branches that were left on the tree. So now we can have a better idea of what we have to work with. So let's take another look at the tree and see where we are. First thing, let's look at the trunk. You can notice there are a couple of areas that are problem areas. Right in here we have kind of an inverse taper. It would be nice to be able to do something to make that look better. Same thing with this on our secondary trunk. Another area where we have an inverse taper. The thing that I did notice is that if this is the front that we were working with, if we turn it slightly clockwise, you can see that this section of the trunk, you get more movement in here. Looking at it from this direction, this is pretty much straight. If we just move it a little bit counterclockwise, we get a lot more movement in the trunk. The other thing that we can do is there is a shari here where a branch was torn off. We're going to increase this shari, make this a little bit larger here. Hopefully pump up this part of the trunk. Get the lifeline on this side to pump up and make this look a little bit wider so it doesn't look quite so much like an inverse taper. Same thing with this area on the secondary trunk. There's a shari here where a branch was ripped off. There is a very serious inverse taper in this area. So we're going to add some more shari and take this side off so that this side pumps up. It will accomplish two things by doing that. Hopefully we'll get more of a curve, more movement in the trunk here, and we'll remove this inverse taper. So those two things we're going to do, and then we'll get back to the foliage on the tree. So we finished the shari on the trunk. Increase the amount of shari right in this area and in this area to hopefully improve the taper of the trunk. That's all we're going to do on the trunk for now. So the next thing we're going to focus on, we will focus on this area, our secondary apex. In here, we're going to focus on this area and thin it and prune it and put some wire on it and get this set up for development. I was hoping for some back budding on this part, but right at the moment it's not back budding anywhere in here. So we're just going to hope that the cutback will allow some back budding to happen in here so we can get some more foliage back in closer to the trunk. So that's what we're going to do for now. We're just going to wire it and keep our fingers crossed that we get some back budding. So now The work has been done on our secondary tree and apex in this area. This has all been thinned, pruned, and wired. Branches have been set up for pad development and encouraging back budding. So this whole area, this has all been done. Also, this area was done as well. Thin, pruned, wired, laid out for pad development. If you notice, this area here has not been pruned as aggressively. I want this branch to thicken a bit, so I let these guys go ahead. I'm going to let these run a bit to thicken this up. So we'll hope that this work will encourage some back budding and we can get some foliage back closer to the trunk. Now our next area that we'll work on is going to be this area up in here. So we're going to thin, prune, wire this as well. And we'll get that done and then check back in to see what it looks like. The pruning, thinning, and wiring on the tree have now been completed. Branch pads have been wired out and laid flat so that they all get the same amount of sun and develop at the same rate. Hopefully we'll get some nice back budding so we can fill in a little closer to the trunk. There are a few exceptions where I have left some aggressive growing tips to develop thickness in branches. The other thing that we had decided was we were going to change the front of the tree from right about here and just move it clockwise to about here so we get more movement in the trunk. Other thing we're going to do is tip it up just a little bit when we repot it in February. Bring this apex up a little bit higher, and then also we want to kind of tweak this apex back just a little bit. So for that, we're going to have to put a piece of rebar in the back here and pull the apex over. So we'll do that and then take another look at the tree when it's ready to put back on the bench. The work is now complete on our pre-bonsai. We'll put this tree back on the bench and fertilize it, make sure it stays healthy until next year, and then we'll probably do major work again next summer. We'll check in on it periodically during the year to see how it's doing. And that's it. Back on the bench for this guy.
My Toyogawa juniper is really healthy and it's time to work on it. This video started, I've already thinned the branches. I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to it, I've just thinned them and took some old wire off. So now I'm going to rewire and move some things around. And I'm going to turn it around so you can see where we're at. It's much more open. I can see what's going on inside, which is going to help me make some decisions, decide where to move things. And we'll discuss maybe options for changing the front to see what we can do. You always want to check that. It's a fun process. So I just be by myself with my camera, so forgive me. No videographer. I'm doing it on my own, but you can see I've got a lot to do yet, wiring wise, and I'll go from here. I think I'm finally done with my Shimpaku juniper. I took a video of it thinking I was done, and then looked at it and said, no, more to do. So I trimmed some more and did some more wiring, but this is it. I'm stopping now. So I've got, this is the front. It's been the front for a number of years, and I wanted to explain one more time why I don't like this front particularly, and there's two main reasons. It's the root base is fairly narrow, and then I've also got this big root, the biggest part, coming straight at you, which I don't think looks all that aesthetic. Then going up the tree, the shari kind of is a little bit boring. It follows the line of the tree, and there's some movement there, but I think it could be better. So we're going to move around. Actually, why don't we do a twirl of the whole tree real quick. Everything looks fairly balanced. I'm reasonably happy with how it's turned out. All right, back to the front. Now I'm going to show you the spot I like best and why. I dislike this part because of this pointy oval shari that I made a decade or two ago, and it never looked good, and it's barely looking better now. All right, so here we have where I like it, and the base is much wider looking, and it's very interesting. There's a lot more gin work here that looks pretty good also. And I just like the movement of it. I think it looks good. So somewhere in that general vicinity, give or take an inch, I'm gonna go there. The other thing I like is the gin right here. It's like a cluster of gin in there, and I'm thinking of ginning that one or this one, because as you see that in the wild, will be a tree that has just an area that just explodes with gin because something bad happened there, and I like that idea. And then the other part that needs possibly work is this area. There's nothing, no shari whatsoever from here to here. And maybe some of that will be covered by foliage and I won't care, but I'm interested in maybe putting a little bit in there and see how that works. The other thing I have going is this branch, which is, it's my lowest branch, and it's kind of small. I don't know if I really need it. Let's see, might be right like that. But I'm gonna let it grow because it's too small to gin. So why not do that? Okay, and my other weird thing, I kept pulling this down by accident and it kept pulling away. So I've got it wired up there so I don't do it again. I don't know how many times I did it over the years. And by the way, this tree, I've had it for 45 years. So and it was just a tiny little raffle prize, dollar raffle prize. So all of the abuse you see is man-made. Okay, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
We will now start work on our more refined tree. This tree has all of its primary, secondary, tertiary branching is all in place. The primary task for our work this time around will be to reduce foliage, since this is more of a literati style tree. It has a little bit too much foliage for that type of a styling. We're also going to thin and set up the pads for growth for next year. So let's get started. I'm going to start working on this area, and we will do this work and then come back and take a look at it. Okay, the work on our primary branch has been done for this year. We've definitely reduced the amount of foliage on this branch, ginned some of the longer leggier parts, and set up the pads for development for this year. So everything is done here for now. We're going to move on to the next branch up the tree, and we're going to do the same type of work here, going through thinning out, wiring, pruning, setting up our pads for this year's development. So we'll do this work and then we'll check back in. Our second branch has now been thinned and wired and set up for this year's growth. As you can see, we have subdivided this branch into 5 little pads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little pads, adding complexity to the design. So now we will move up the tree and start with the third branch, back branch. So we're going to be working on, going to be working in this area now. We're going to go ahead and thin prune wire this, and we'll come back and take a look at it. Well, I got a little bit carried away and did a little more pruning and thinning that I expected to do. Instead of just doing this one little area, I ended up pruning back and beginning the thinning process on most of the tree. So now the next step is to go through and do some refinement work on our pads. As you can see, if you've been following the video since the beginning, the first time we set up the pads, things were a little bit sparse and open because we needed to get some back budding to do some filling and be able to cut back and get density to the pads. If you can look in this area, you can see that we got back budding and we're able to get fill in the top of the pad. Just to reiterate, our pad should be more of a clamshell shaped, so the outer edge is the longest part and it slopes back as it goes back toward the inside of the tree. So that's what we're working on. I've been getting some nice back budding to do the fill part, so this is developing nicely. So now I'm going to go through and add some wire to the places where I need to wire. Most things are pretty well set up for the pads. Not going to have to add too much wire, but we're all going to do some more thinning to the top part of the tree, and then we'll come back and take another look at it. Work is now complete on our more refined tree for 2025, ready to go back on the bench and just grow for this year. All the pruning, thinning, and wiring have been done. Pads are set up for development for next year, for our developmental growth. Not too much to do between now and next summer. So we're just going to put him back on the bench and let him grow. The other thing is we might consider will be to add more shari and gin to the tree. We can add some shari in this area to kind of make this a little more interesting. The other thing we can consider is as we get back budding and more density in our pads, we can cut them back and perhaps create more gin as we did in this area. To cut back and create gin, maybe from some of these branches, we'll cut back to this and make a gin out of this. Other areas on the tree we'll be looking at doing the same thing. So that's it for this year, for 2025. We're going to put him back on the bench and make sure he stays healthy and grows really well.